Warning. Endroll is a dark game that touches on a variety of grim topics, such as murder, suicide, abuse, and a general hopeless, nihilistic worldview. It also makes allusions to drug use, drug violence, sex, and body horror. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey everyone, Mappy here, and welcome to Let's Just Have a Little Bit of a Chat about Endroll. First of all, there were a few things that I actually missed when we were playing through the game proper that I had to go back and get. The first one was Yumi's movie scenes. I actually realized that we had completely and utterly skipped them. So, let's go take a look at those. Now, I never showed you guys Yumi's, movies. And there's a reason for that. If you don't go to them immediately upon getting Yumi on day... on day 6, you can't. You actually cannot go back and get her movies. I'm here on the morning of day 7, and if you try to go into the theater, you're told that it's locked. If you ask the caddy, like, yo, what gives? You here for only you theater? We're not running anymore. Sorry to say, yeah. Some carnage broke out in the theater last night. It's a pain to clean up bloodstains, so we decided to shut it all down. Sheesh. We just wanted to offer people free entertainment. We just got bad customers, yeah. So, yeah, you can't come back and watch more movies after day 6. However, you also can't go in and watch movies at night on day 6. So, while there actually is a scene for Yumi, a movie scene for Yumi watching Deep Sea Aria and responding to it, that's not actually possible to get without hacking the game. Which I actually did. So, I'm going to show you guys the scenes, and yeah, it'll be great. Talk to you after that's done. Pretty strange movie, weren't it? I'm more one for action flicks. That woman's just too gloomy. If she's mad about being cheated on, why not just sock her husband? I'm not sure about that. What? No good? I mean, I think I might do that. Can't stand being screwed with. Of course, not sure there's any boys who'd be the boyfriend of a girl rowdy as that. Ever get a lover? Don't go cheating on him. Women are more violent than you think. Yeah, I think so too. Hey, you get me. Revenge is a dish you gotta serve right away. Besides, if somebody cheats once, they're just gonna keep doing it. One punch to cut ties, that's best. A disaster movie. Nice. I love a movie that's got thrills like that, but kinda wanted to see him reveal the monster and have a big duel. Felt kinda lacking. Oh, I think so too. Hey, so we agree. Leaves me kinda unsatisfied to end it with things hanging. Wonder if there's a sequel planned. Hope they put the duel in that one. Of course, if a sequel comes out, I'll go see it with you, and I'll treat you to some juice. It's fine how it is. Oh, you think so? Guess when you end that way, it stirs up some terror. Maybe. I've always been an action movie gal, so that's just the way I think of things. Alright, so now that that's dealt with, there's one other interesting scene that I want to show off. And that involves going back to Puddle Apartments at night. So let's quickly hop on over there. Okay, so one thing that we did miss is, while I did come back to Puddle Apartments at night, I never actually went back into... wrong room. I never actually went back into Chris's room. Which is a shame, because someone else is here. If you come in here at night. Now I'm gonna grab Gardenia. I don't actually know if Gardenia will add anything, but who knows? I do know that Chris freaks out when he speaks to her, so... what? Oh. Same conversation, so no Gardenia necessary. Anyway, let's have a chat with our good friend Chris. Yo, if it ain't Russell, what's the deal coming this late? Your old man lock you out? Well, you should get a bite to eat while you're here. Mom's actually home for once today. Well, but... No, I know you already know, but we're pretty poor, so it ain't gonna be amazing. And he just repeats himself. But the interesting thing is if you talk to his mother... Why, if it isn't Russell, what brings you here this late? Family problems, right? It must be hard with that hussy of a mother. Want to have a dinner here? Yes, please. Please do. Chris will be glad too. We don't have much, though. Well, take a seat and wait. It'll be ready soon. And for that, you get a full heal. How did it taste? You can come by any time. Now, the fact that you get a full heal here is really interesting. But I will give that back to, I guess, post-commentary me to continue discussing. Alright. So, the reason I find it really interesting that you can get a full heal there is that, well, there's no reason to. The only dungeon near there that actually might require you to get a full heal would be Deep Sea Hotel, which has its own restroom. I guess you could go into Dreams and Research and go there to heal instead of going up to Darkover Town like I did. But at the same time, or alternatively, you can do that while you're going in the Warped Birthday the third time. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure that only happens at night. So the timing would be pretty tight. Now, I have a theory as to why that is. I think at some point in the game's development, Chris was going to be a much bigger character than he ended up being. Because in the end game, he's just a character for a guild event. Now, there are a few reasons why I'm thinking that he's not just a random NPC. One of the big ones is actually going to come up in a later video. I did record these post-finale videos out of order, but we'll get to that. The other reason that I think that he was probably supposed to be a much bigger character is that he and his mother are some of the few NPCs that are noticeably human, other than the people who live in town. If you notice, they're not like anyone else in the Puddle Apartments. They're not one of the Watchins or Fanins, as they're called. They're not like any of the people at Dragon's Peak, or Darkover Town, or Funeral, or so on and so forth, where there's some, like, weird monster things. Chris is very clearly based off someone that Russell knows. And the only other people who are directly based off people Russell knows are the Memory Girl boss from Deep Sea Hotel, which I'm still not sure what was going on there. I have a feeling that Russell basically was nice to someone for once in his life, and he had fond memories of that. But yeah, the only people besides Chris and the Dreams and Research people who are human are the other townspeople. Well, other than Kentera, because he's a Draken. But I'm not sure what the story is there. But that doesn't mess up my theory here. My theory that Chris at some point was supposed to be important. And the last bit of evidence I have, which is really, really meta, is that the creator of the game, Sagawa, actually has a gallery. Actually, the website where Endroll was really uploaded and has all kinds of extra information and artwork, but it's in Japanese. The person who translated the game, VG person, has also translated this extra material, and I will link that in the description. The reason I have not linked that before is because there are a ton of spoilers in there. That's actually where I've been drawing the pictures for my thumbnails. And also this picture that you see right now. That's just Russell talking into a phone. I really love this picture, and I'm not sure why. Anyway, back to the third bit of evidence. In all the concept art that he doodled, or she doodled, I'm not sure about Sagawa's. Anyway. So, there was what looks like the information that was written on one of those cards. You know, the ones that I would pop up at the end of episodes with a little summary of each character, the ones that were right next to Russell's house, as a summary just in case you forgot. There is, on the concept art picture for Chris, there is the information that would go on one of those. I actually mocked up what that would have looked like in-game, and it would have looked like this. Chris, Russell's best friend, or worst. A famous brat in the neighborhood, but with his nothing-to-hide personality, he has plenty of friends. 5'1", age 14. And funnily enough, it's actually the fact that his height and age are specified that kind of sells it for me. Because from what I could see, that's not specified for anyone who isn't supposed to be a major character. So what I'm guessing happened was that Chris had some role in the game. And maybe it was earlier on in planning. I actually guess that it would have been earlier on in planning, because looking through the game's files, there's no real area where there would be extra maps or any backgrounds we hadn't seen. There was some area that belonged to Chris. Like, there was some area that was associated with Chris, and we would get more of the story behind him and Russell. But that ended up being scrapped for whatever reason. And I think one of the videos that's coming up, we will see a little bit more information on that, but I'm not going to spoil that. Now, speaking of these cards, one other thing that I missed while going through the game was that Russell's card actually changes over time based off your level of guilt. As you remember, the first time you see it, he's described as a boy lacking in emotion. But if you get up to, I think it's past 15 guilt, I'm not exactly sure what the trigger is, you get that he becomes described as a normal boy like any other. And it adds the caveat, but to the end of his little, he's having a wonderful dream. And interestingly enough, his expression changes slightly. And finally, you get this one. Ooh boy, that's a little... yeah. I guess that's how Russell feels if once you get enough guilt to actually trigger the proper ending. Or I should say, the secret dungeon. Because that takes you getting all of the guilt. Now, if we were to remove the, murderer scrawl, what that says, alongside with a picture of a nice, happy, smiling Russell, is Russell, a kind-hearted boy. By injecting a medicine called Happy Dream, he has pleasant dreams every day, but he can never can never escape his sin. Never. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to show you that we hadn't seen during the playthrough, and that we aren't going to go into in the other post-credits gameplay. Because, ooh boy, there's actually quite a bit of post-credits stuff in this game. But I kind of wanted to just discuss some things about the game. A little bit of my opinion. Because I did touch onto this a little bit during the game, but I always got interrupted by, the game. Or I would just lose my train of thought. So the first thing I wanted to say, and I've touched on this before, is that I really appreciate that someone went through the effort of making a proper horror JRPG in RPG Maker. That is actually incredibly rare. Most horror games made in RPG Maker are more in the style of like Yumeniki, or I'm trying to think of another example that would, like The Witch's House, where the majority of the gameplay is walking around and talking to people, interacting with NPCs, but they don't really have combat in them. Whereas this game is very much a traditional JRPG. In fact, it doesn't really have that many gimmicky mechanics, which is also rather interesting because at this point, it's kind of hard to find JRPGs that don't have some kind of gimmick to their combat system. Well, I guess this one does have a bit of a character gimmick because you have the Type 1 and Type 2 weapons, which I think is an interesting way of changing up your party composition. And I guess it also has... no other games have ultimate moves. It's a very... Mechanics are nothing to write home about. But at the same time, it fits. It's very much the kind of game that Russell would play. I think it's actually is made explicit a few of the extra dungeons you go into, specifically the Wise Ones. The Dungeon of the Wise Ones, which I did show on screen, and the Tower of the Guide-Selling Lady, which I did not because it's rubbish. They are both explicitly related to games Russell has played in his actual life. They related to that dungeon, you have consoles. There's you have to use a console to get into the Wise One's dungeon, and the Guide-Selling Lady's Tower literally ends by you yanking the plug on a console and being told, yo, play less video games. Which, is that a thing anymore? I remember when I was younger, you had a bunch of games that would, occasionally just yell at you to put the game down and go outside. Is that a thing anymore? Or have they stopped doing that? I don't actually know. I don't actually play enough mainstream games to really see that on account of not having the money for them. Anyway, back to the game that we just finished, which was bleak. Very bleak. And honestly, I can see why it was... given the topic, it really could not have ended any way other than the way it ended. I am somewhat opposed to the description of where Russell decides to just continue living in the dream as, the coward's ending. because, yeah, the game kind of establishes that even though the inhabitants of the dream are not real, that they do kind of have some sort of existence separate from what Russell is thinking about. Like, they continue to do things off screen. There was that whole thing with there was that guild event with Gardenia earlier, where essentially, due to her increased awareness, the dream basically had to reset her, because she was going off script. Which, again, that one was interesting. And, yeah, that brings me to Gardenia. Gardenia probably has the most side content, given that you go through her dungeon 3 times. Now... Ooh, there's a spider. I'm gonna give it space. But yeah, so... The interesting thing to me about Gardenia is that she is the one where the game makes it very explicit that Russell didn't really know much about her. Where it makes it very explicit that, you know, he doesn't actually know which of the 3 Gardenias the game shows you was closest to the real one. And, at least to me, it also brings up the question, does it really matter in the long run? The game makes... Because, again, the game makes it clear to Russell and to us that that telling them and ending the dream isn't going to change anything. He cannot change things that happened in the past. And that is really the nature of guilt. Guilt is regret for things that cannot be changed. So, yeah, and as we saw in the ending where he woke up, he just kills himself. Like, and that's not really a... Let's just say that the Happy Dream program didn't end in a success, and probably never could have ended in a success. And also, man, is that, cruel and unusual punishment. Like, Russell clearly lives in some kind of dystopia. Not just because of the Happy Dream drugs, but because no one ever called Child Protective Services. Even though he actually ran into, the cop lady who was represented by Yumi multiple times. For whatever reason, no one was worried about this kid who, from what we know, repeatedly skipped school to go to, the zoo or the aquarium by himself. And, commonly wandered around town and got picked up by the police. He's 14. At the very least, someone's gonna look into that. And given what we see through the filter of Russell's memories about his parents, it's kind of hard to imagine that anyone could look at his home life and go, yeah, you're fine. We'll just leave you here. Which brings me to my biggest quibble about the game. Which is that, do we actually know if Russell did anything wrong? Alright, so, this is not something that has any justification, mind you. This is just something that I started thinking about roughly when we were going through day 5 with Murray, where... So... Rather, after Murray's death, it occurred to me that for at least some of them, for at least some of the people who had died, they were not necessarily a murder. Like, for example, with Murray, that could just be a case of he showed up to the hospital one day, learned that that nurse had jumped, saw her diary, and, like, fabricated in his head that, oh man, I pushed her. Or something. Maybe he felt guilty because, like, oh man, I went in there and... I don't know. But I get the feeling that, like, for example, Murray's death could be explained by her, like, jumping or just falling, or Gardenia's death could just be, like, Russell pushed her and didn't expect her to die when she fell down the stairs. Not that manslaughter is really okay, but a couple of the characters seem like their deaths don't really add up. Like, or let's go with Cody and Dogma. So apparently Russell, like, boarded up the doors of a church and set it on fire while the two of them were inside, and managed to sneak up in the night without anyone investigating. Like, it was... Apparently Russell was just incredibly good at hiding his tracks, but at the same time, we don't really know if that was like a, hey, this is a dystopian nightmare, like, place he's living, and the cops are just utterly incompetent. Well, utterly incompetent, and they hand over their prison sentences to random, probably evil corporations. Or he wasn't actually involved in the arson? Like, for a few of these, especially since one of Russell's established character traits is that he doesn't understand other people's emotions. He is, like... The game portrays him as sociopathic, but he could just be, like, autistic, or this had some other inability to, like, parse other people's emotions, and that's not really a good recipe for, like, avoiding a manhunt. He doesn't seem like the kind of, like, let's go back to Gardenia again. I know I'm kind of just rambling and going all over the place, but this is a bunch of stuff that I've been thinking about, and I'm just letting out right now. Gardenia fell down the stairs. Russell was, as far as we know, the only person up there with her. And he doesn't get, like, in trouble for this. Gardenia's father doesn't press charges or something? I don't know. So, I guess what this long, rambling thing comes down to, for all we know, Dream's End could have actually messed with his memories. Like, it's obvious that the drug is capable of doing other things. Like, I doubt that if Russell went to dream normally, the informant would be there acting as basically like, hi, I'm the part of you that knows how all of this works. Like, that feels like something that was implanted in Russell. So, yeah. I don't actually know if Russell is guilty about real events or not, which actually feels strangely appropriate for this game. Because another thing about the nature of guilt is that it's not always rational and not always attached to things that really happened. Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest and talk about that for a little bit. I also want to say that I really appreciate the character design in this game. And the reason I really appreciate it is that when I first saw this one, I was looking at a few other indie games, and one of them was a, Danganronpa play. However you pronounce that. Danganronpa, clone. And they threw, 17 characters at me within the first 5 minutes with just, a name and a quick picture, and I was like, all these people look the same. They're all wearing the same clothes, they all have the same color scheme. Am I supposed to tell the difference between them by their haircut? Is that what's going on here? I can't do that. And then I come to End Roll, and each character has a very distinctive look and a very distinctive personality. They also each have their own color scheme. For example, Cody is brown and green. Dogma is, white and black priest clothes. Feria is that bright cyan and white. Gardenia is orange and pink. So on and so forth. You can tell you could take their sprites, you could show me the color scheme on the sprite, and I would have a pretty good chance of telling you which character it belongs to. And on top of that, you could show me just the sprite with just the outline of the sprite. I would be able to tell you which character it belonged to, which is just really good. It's really good, and it's actually a bit more than I would expect out of an indie game. Especially one built on, for a JRPG, where all of the character sprites are 16 by 16. Because a lot of the classic RPGs I can think of, wouldn't have silhouettes that were that clean. I also really just appreciate the structure of the game. I think it actually has a really good way of using the decent-sized cast that the game did. The whole thing where it's, okay, you meet everyone on day one, and then every single day focuses on a new character, or, a new pair of characters in the case of Cody and Dogma, who are a little close together as far as the game is concerned. There is a really big feeling that the game is pick one or the other, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I like End Roll. It's a game that makes me feel negative feelings, and I'm not sure I'm going to play it again soon. I mean, part of that is because I have played through, if I go through all the stuff I have had to record and re-record and record out of order for this Let's Play, I think I have probably played through some parts of this game 5 times? So, I'm probably not going to play through the game again soon. But this is definitely a game that I've really liked End Roll. I think that End Roll is, I'm going to use the term hidden gem. That's kind of how I feel about End Roll. Anyway, I am going to wrap this all up. There will be 3 videos coming. There should be another one uploaded today, which is just covering some stuff about the resort island. And then there will be 2 on Thursday. Those will both be pretty long, so if you... I don't expect people to watch both of them at the same time, but yeah. I hope to see you guys for that one. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed End Roll as much as I have. I'm Mappy, signing off. Thank you, and I will see you next time.